Welcome to Prime Suspects for your weekly insider's look behind the counter of Prime Sports. Alongside Joe Brennan Jr. and Adam Bjorn, I'm your host, Matt Landis. Today's topics: the football weekend that was for Prime, it's primetime at SpankOdds, and FanDuel's goal for a 16% hold. Guys, kicking it off, as always, with the latest from inside Prime Sports. Adam, we'll turn it over to you first, and stop me if you've heard this before, but the biggest favorites in the NFL have lost outright once again. Arguably even more chaotic in the college ranks, with 5 teams ranked in the top 11 losing outright. Just a 25-point Miami comeback short of seeing more than half of those top 11 teams defeated on the same day. How was the anarchy this past weekend for Prime's bottom line?
It was actually a good week, and we won in Ohio. So it was actually a better result in Ohio for the weekend than New Jersey, thankfully, to a couple of players, mainly on some live stuff, which I think was kind of some of those results from Saturday and Sunday, where something like San Fran up by 10 would think they just hold on at home, better team. We had a few people tip into those thinking it was just, free money. Good results there. Again, Jets getting beat. Good result there. It was sort of the big game of the week when we were sort of announcing it Saturday night. And then screw those Bungles. Ravens was a good result. Bungles have cost me this year. It's time for them to give up this season, forfeit the rest, and come back next year. They've upset me too much with knocking out at least, I think, 7 of my 10 Survivor entries this season in two occasions. The college football, some big upsets. Personally, I do have Miami to win the whole thing, so I'd kind of written that one off and then saw the final score, had stopped watching towards the end. But again, a lot of those comebacks with the live betting is when they come back like that, it actually hurts because people generally keep backing the better team to win. So when it sort of swings one way and then swings back the other way, you often end up with these Polish middles that the favorites winning by a little amount can actually hurt more than anything. Whereas a favorite just getting slogged, all heading one way, is actually a really good result because, again, in the live betting, generally you have people just believing that the better team, and especially when they're at home, will come back, and they'll just keep chipping away. So you really need that just to keep going in one direction or to never, really come back to what that ultimate spread was. Again, all in all, we definitely haven't solved the Ohio topic. There was, a few little numbers in there. Again, we got really lucky with a couple of players playing some certain lines that had them jumping from a high height and getting caught in those situations. But it's just another week in the books, and it was a good one, and we'll push forward.
When it comes to a market as tricky as Ohio has been for you thus far, how inclined are you to perhaps shade lines a certain way if you're seeing consistently a team like the Jets, which I would expect to be bet most heavily in New Jersey? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think a lot of your Ohio customers have been heavy on the Jets the past couple of weeks. If you see action like that in a market that's been beating you up, how inclined are you to shade your lines in a certain way to defend against it versus just to let the standard price point do its thing over time and take it for what it is in the long run?
Very highly inclined at the moment. Again, we know we're working with a short stack. The good thing is ultimately we're winning, one side and the other side. I still put down New Jersey. I think we have a lot of arbors there. I think that, they're doing the gambling gods good work and taking it from the big and mighty and giving it to the little guy. Ohio, we don't have the kind of arbitrage business, so it's definitely maybe giving some free opportunities for players that maybe it costs us a penny here and there, whatnot, to try and balance some of that out just to sort of stem the bloodshed to an extent. But, we're in this to take bets. We need to take more bets. We need more customers. We need more liquidity. We need more of a lot of things. So I think, again, it's just identifying it, drilling down a little bit. We broke out the numbers pre and live this week. The live, definitely there's an uptick in it, which is a good thing because ultimately that's where the business is going towards, of trying to get more live. So there's more engagement. And, ultimately I think segment 2 is kind of something that we've rolled out this week. It'd be interesting to see if that was part of, again, my more eyeballs on our product and hopefully, moving forward, seeing where that goes.
And speaking of segment 2, I heard you on the quest for more bets, more customers, more liquidity. So from Prime's bottom line to its betting lines and a new way to monitor them in real time. Our water cooler segment this week, as of October 4th, Prime Sports is now live on the premier betting odds stream, SpankOdds. Joe, you broke the news on Twitter, noting To everyone from Bet Bash who came up and asked me, when is Prime going to get their feet on SpankOdds? You have your answer. What would you say about any surprises to our audience regarding the process behind reaching this milestone moment?
The only surprise was how long we got to actually enjoy it before getting in my inbox, my DMs, my phone and everything, getting inundated by everybody, great and small with their own odds board, odds service, things like that, saying like, when can we get the feed? And that's a bad thing, and that I didn't really get a chance to annoy it, but it's a good thing, and that there's a lot of people who are really hungry for our price and our numbers. It's not like, I don't think Tipico or Better with an R or any of those guys had people jumping all over them so quickly to try and get their odds feeds, but everybody wants the Prime number. So it's good that the market respects it. It's good that they're hungry for it. And now there will be a considerable amount of like pleading, begging, cajoling, arguing, whatever I have to do with Maximus there to see how it is that we're going to start getting this distributed around.
And building on that, Adam, I think you referenced in your Saturday live stream with Scott, questions now starting to shift from when will Prime be on SpankOdds to queries such as when will Prime have more markets available on SpankOdds, and when will Prime have more info on its limits available on SpankOdds. So adding to what Joe said, peel back the curtain for us on where things stand right now and what's still to come.
Yeah, well, the goal was to get up the main markets. Again, I'll give a big kudos to Spanky here because he has built up a relationship over a long time. He could have easily gone and scraped the numbers. We have people scraping the numbers. We haven't gone to war with any of them as yet to a certain extent, because ultimately when people are scraping numbers from your front end, it puts load on the system. And it's just like having more players come in kind of thing. So, they waited, they were patient. They got the opportunity to have it first and be up in that nature. The idea was to, again, get these sports up. NBA, they've already got approval for. College basketball, they've already got approval for. So as those sports roll out, they'll be up and available. Some of the other sports, we just haven't built into the API yet of giving them that. And then the depths of, we sort of tested some first halves, first quarters. The product wasn't 100%. So I said, all right, just get live with this stuff. And then, piece by piece, we'll start piecemealing it together. So there's a full product across all sports and sort of depth in what they can offer. But there's no good having a lot of numbers up there that aren't, real time, aren't updating correctly. And that's on our side, not theirs. So we just need to do some work on that. Again, it's been a process of getting that stuff to them, delivering it on our end, because again, we've never really bothered to push this. Ultimately, everyone generally finds our numbers and they find the place. But it was more of, again, just trying to give back a little bit more. So, with Spanky's, I can't remember off the top of my head, the new thing where it looks, grabs multiple lines, puts the value on it, stuff like that. It makes it easier for his customers to be able to have the line in there so they can compare these game values when they're looking at it on one system. So again, we're working on it. We're not in a hurry to just roll out the whole thing because there's a lot of shit going on in the background. But step by step, we'll just add more and probably hear more what are the requests, what's higher. Is it more markets? Is it more sports main lines? I know the limits is one thing as well. That's a huge uptick on SpankOdds versus a Don Best and some of those other ones. But that's a lot more complicated to put in the feed and things like that. So it's all a work in progress. As you've said, you say many, many times, for us, this is an ultra marathon. I think for Spanky, it's a ultra marathon. Just we'll keep chipping away and keep sort of being in the niche part of the business that we're in and work together and with other like-minded people that are trying to build this industry instead of fucking tear it down by trying to hold 16%. It is what it is right now.
Yeah, just one real quick point to follow up is in addition to SpankOdds, and it really is something when you get to see your own up from the ground sportsbook get its own listing on the board. But it's also like, it's, shout out for Adam and Vegas Horse Pools, Scott, for the show that they're doing the day before NFL Sunday, their handicapping show, the stuff that we're putting out, and we have a couple of reporters who are like asking for our information about our markets. I mean, we're getting an awful lot of attention right now for our markets in a variety of different forms. And I think it's obviously, especially with like Adam and Scott and their show and the folks who are picking us up and now SpankOdds, it shows like the level of credibility that we have. And when our stuff is being posted up, people are talking about it as being sharp plays. You just don't see that crap coming out of the social or anything that the other sports books are pushing. They're pushing polls, and Will Travis proposed to Taylor after the game. It was just garbage, where the stuff that we're pushing out, whether it's on the odds feed or through social or anything like that, it's all stuff that has real value. Even if you're not playing with us, we're giving that guys out an awful lot of value in our view of the markets.
Well, Joe, speaking of Prime's credibility and perhaps a lack thereof in some other books across the space, let's get into our look ahead segment this week. There's a panel scheduled at G2E that will explore profitability in sports betting and how new products such as SGPs and microbetting will drive profit in coming years. Underscoring this trend, Fanduel CEO Amy Howe recently said the company is targeting a 16% hold by 2030. Adam, for once, I feel like our look ahead segment on this show isn't a nothing sandwich for you. You started to speak your mind a bit on LinkedIn already. Tell us more right here about what you think about that claim.
Again, it's purely not understanding what sports betting is. I know they're wanting to rape and pillage and take advantage of the average bettor that, parlay holds can be anywhere north of 20%. But it also shows that they got zero interest in having full inclusivity from across. Like, there is people out there that will lose 2 to 3% in a responsible manner that cover all the costs that you have and whatnot. And that should blend out to, sure, high single digits, maybe low double digits, if you're sort of attacking it a certain way. But 16% on sports betting, there's a lot of slot machines here that are only taking out like 3 or 4. It just shows exactly what they think of sports betting. And as I said, it almost throws in the face of responsible gaming that they're looking to use same game parlays and all these kind of things to run up their edge or their hold or whatever it is way beyond what's needed. You look around the world in sports betting, you look at Vegas for 30, 40, 50 years. They were holding 4 5%. Sometimes that'd get to 6. I understand what they're trying to do with the product, and they're trying to turn sports into a casino, but let casinos be casinos. And even the casinos don't take that much off the player. Yes, it's higher handle because it's churning a lot quicker, but they're just ruining sports betting for what it is. I truly hope that the American bettor, and as hard as I've said they've been to educate recently, I truly hope the American bettors have a groundbreaking moment of understanding what kind of house edge and what kind of charge these people put on these parlays and these same game parlays to be able to hold 16%. It's literally saying, here's $1 milk and I'm going to charge you $1.50. And every time you want it, I'm going to charge you 50% on top of it. Because to get a 16% hold like that, it's not sports betting. It's not a skilled product. And, sports and poker, casino and lottery, they're for a reason. Some of them are skilled. Yes, there's got to be opportunities for people to win, make money, beat you, whatnot. That's just part of the game. Versus lotto, where you're taking out horse racing pools, where you're guaranteeing your 16 cents on the dollar and stuff like that. Sports betting is a skilled sport. It needs to stay like that. And it just clearly shows what's being done on the back end behind the eyes of what people can see on the front. And they don't understand the math of they click 10 buttons and then suddenly they're getting a 60, 70% overcharge on the back of it. I don't know if they ever will. I hope in years to come they will identify this as a player and value consumers. For someone to come out and say that on the sports betting side, again, pisses in the face of responsible gaming, in my opinion, when it comes to sports betting. Calls American bettors morons because they don't know how much they're getting taken for a ride. And ultimately, the regulators and legislators and stuff are expecting everybody to hold that. Well, sure as hell we won't be, but bit by bit, we'll become more inclusive of being part of the fabric of bettors. And hopefully they understand if they come play with us and play with others like us, they're just getting better value for money. We're not charging $50 for a movie ticket when it should be only $20. It's as I said, I haven't been on LinkedIn for quite a while, but that one, I had to throw a dart back on that one.
And Joe, definitely curious for your thoughts as well. I am thinking of framing this up in terms of different stakeholders here. We've got books like Fanduel, we've got Prime and other books across the market, and we've got bettors who, to Adam's point, will hopefully become more prime sensitive over time. Considering the various stakeholders and where things stand today, what do you consider to be the practical implications of a world where some of the market leading operators are looking to generate 16% margins?
Well, if you look at the betting audience right now, what they're really saying is that not only do we want an unsophisticated audience, we really only want a younger audience. Because once you get 35 and over, which is actually, that skews more towards our customer. It's a customer that will bet more and then also tends towards single wagers rather than parlays and things like that. I guess in a way, what Amy Howe and Fan Kings in general are signaling is that we want a product just skews younger. And it's true. Players that are under the age of 30, they're mostly betting on parlays. And I think people read that as like, okay, well, that's the way the industry is going right now. I don't know that that's necessarily correct. My own, I'll say, semi-educated guess is it isn't. It's just where it's at for the moment. And then how might things change? There was a time in Nevada when it was all table games. Table games ruled the roost. And when you looked at things like craps and roulette, which hold in the range that Ms. Howe says that they want to target for FanDuel for sports betting. The average for historically, like over the last 20 years in Nevada for craps and for roulette were between 15 and 18%. Okay. But craps and roulette are not dominant games. I mean, they're kind of touristy games, right? There's a handful of serious players, but for the most part, when you walk into a casino in Nevada, in Las Vegas, the majority of players are in there to hammer the slot machines, and slot machines have a 5% hold margin. And that's because they've figured it out. Like, okay, well, if people want to play, you've got the return to player has to be significantly better. Could you imagine if slots were holding at 15 to 18%? You take those things, you throw them out back off the damn loading dock. There's a reason why most casino floors are dominated by slot machines. And it's not because they are aesthetically more appealing than craps tables or roulette tables. You kind of combine this with particularly, I forget the guy's name who's sharing this panel at G2E with Chris Grove, but I had just listened to him. He was on the podcast with Eilers and Krychek last week. He was an interesting guy to listen to. But he's another, and I think this is probably why Chris is talking to him, he's another in a series of folks that are talking about particularly in-game betting and micro betting as being more slot machine-ish, right? That like just the real high velocity, high churn, high number of plays from the player. But even at that, they're talking about for that, like targeting like north of 8%. And so everybody seems to have this desire to want to turn sports betting into a high velocity, even more chance-oriented game, either through parlays or by hypervelocity micro bets. But at the same time, they want to drive the margins up and they want to return less to the player. And that's kind of seems counterintuitive. Eventually, and this is, again, my semi-educated guess, is that will burn out players. That, yes, for now, there's an ocean of players under the age of 35 that are pouring a lot of money into SGPs and things like that. And right now it looks like, hey, that's where the industry is going. But I do wonder if it's truly sustainable. All you have to do is look historically at how games like craps and roulette and others, they fell off and it was the slot machines that took over. And a lot of that is because they keep their player in the game. 95% return to player, along with free drink tickets and other things and anything like that. That's what keeps the majority of the casino players there, engaged, they're happier, they're more satisfied. It's not me saying this. The studies, the research has done this, particularly the stuff that Harrah's did, which was really groundbreaking at looking at how their players behaved. So I just, telling people that you want to take 16% out of the players when really what you should be doing is you should be trying to double the volume or triple or quadruple the volume and return as much of them to them as possible and aim for that historical 4 to 6% range in sports betting. That seems probably more sustainable over the duration, but probably isn't nearly as sexy to particularly their institutional investors in the public markets.
And Joe, as you share that, I can't help but think of the legendary Roxy Roxborough and his mantra, stay in action. And far be it from me to say with confidence what's going to happen here over time. But I'm also reminded of the saying, pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. So we'll see what comes of all this. But in the meantime, to our audience, we will continue to feed you as much valuable insight as we can right here on Prime Suspects. Want to thank you for making us a part of your week as always, and we will catch you next week right back here on Prime Suspects. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Prime Suspects. Register for Prime Sports at primesports.com and download the Prime Sports app. You can follow us on Twitter at Prime Sportsbook, at Joe Brennan Jr., and at Adam Bjorn 2. You must be 21 or over to play on Prime Sports. Always bet responsibly and within your limits. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.